our database is close to 60,000 erections. It's the world's largest database in the world. We now know more about men's sexual health than anyone else. Our data, we have, there are 7 research papers. There are another 5 papers underneath, and the data is telling us information about men's sexual health that is transformational. That the doctors have been focused on minor causes, not the major causes of erectile dysfunction.
I never give up. I never give up. I never give up.
Hi guys, welcome back to Neff Inspiration, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stefan Neff. Today I've got a colleague with me, Dr. Elliot Justin. Elliot is a man who has so many accolades, so many achievements in his life. I don't know where to start. This man is involved in so many things, from being an emergency medicine specialist by trade, but soon involving himself in health technology and telemedicine, and has made quite a few breakthroughs that allow especially men nowadays to have new tools when it comes to erectile dysfunction and general sexual health. And that is just amazing. That is just one of many things I could talk with this man about. I can't wait to see where this information is, what information is coming out, and where this interview will go. Elliot, welcome to my show.
It's great to be here.
Oh my God. Elliot, it's just amazing to just read about you and read your achievement. You're 72 years young, and there is still so much energy and passion just coming out of every pore of you. How the hell do you achieve this fountain of youth? Have you tapped into a secret source somewhere? How do you become, or how have you become such a wonderful, wonderful, creative man?
Well, thank you. I think it starts with having an orgasm a day.
Oh,
an orgasm a day keeps doctor away. And I recommend that regimen to everyone. I see these men at the gym. I go to the gym a few times a week.
Yeah.
I see these men at the gym, working out, but there's something missing from their regimen. And they'll often ask me, because they know I'm a doctor and they know what I'm doing. They'll say, "Well, how do you do it?" And I say, "Well, you need to plan for pleasure."
An orgasm a day keeps the doctor away. I have never heard that. I heard it about the apples and about other things, but hey, here you go. I actually liked it. But where did that come from? Were you a child of the sexual revolution? Were your parents the hippies that thought free love is for everyone?
Well, my parents were older than that, so no, there was more. It was really. I mean, it really started out with 7 or 8 orgasms a day, and so when I was an early teenager, and my mother was concerned that I would not get into college with that type of masturbation habit. So she insisted that I go to a urologist 3 times when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And so by the time I got to, moving ahead, and I must say, my mother would be quite surprised right now if she knew that her son was the winner of the most innovative sex toy of the year award. That would take her quite aback, because it's not she thought that I'd win the Nobel Prize in literature or something of that nature. So I when I went to medical school, I was very interested in aphrodisiacs, and went to the medical library to look up aphrodisiacs. And just as I mentioned before, with my sexual experience as a teenager, I don't think there are a lot of doctors in the world whose mothers took them to urologists. There wasn't exactly like a long line behind me of doctors, aspiring doctors in medical school, on the first day of medical school, going to the medical school library and reading about aphrodisiacs. I was alone, and there weren't any. There was the same kind of things they talk about today: maca root, horny goat weed, himbe, allogenate, citrulline. And I, then proceeded to try all these things, and none of them worked. Jumping ahead, later on, I founded a telehealth company, the second oldest telehealth company in the world, called SwiftMD. It's been sold since, and that got me interested in remote patient care technology and sensor technology. And about 3 years ago, I was contacted by a doctor of urology at the University of Utah, a professor, who wanted me to come up with a way of counting the number of nocturnal erections. And he had heard that I had done something that I called Project O for obvious reasons. So as I told you, Stephen, I live out here in Montana. I own horses, and I sometimes have the illusion that I am a centaur, that I am one with a horse. This is a dangerous illusion. Probably as dangerous as thinking like you're one with your motorcycle. So I several years ago, someone had cut a tree that had fallen over a trail, but you couldn't ride underneath it. And I was riding the horse fecklessly on a beautiful day and not paying enough attention. And I shattered that tree with my chest. I broke 6 ribs, I broke 6 vertebrae, and fortunately I did not have any spinal cord damage. And by the way, if any of your listeners are ever concerned they have spinal cord damage, you can check on yourself something I call the cock-up sign, which is basically, if you cock up your big toe, you'll be able to urinate, defecate, and fornicate, the big 3. It's very important. And I've been trying to pass that on to the world since 1983, unsuccessfully. But it's the cock-up sign. But also, I could cock up. I went online and started looking into research on how to recreate men's sexual health or women's sexual health after spinal cord injury or multiple sclerosis. And there were 6 papers in the medical literature. And by the way, it's so appropriate that we call it literature because literature is fiction. And we now know, especially after COVID, that most scientific research is bullshit and unreproducible. In the United States, they're estimating that's between 70 and 80% of all medical research is unreproducible. So,
how much of that is actually funded by pharma industry? Exactly. So whilst you are rather a cynical man, may I say, I actually 100% agree with you, because we again have got actually the data to show that that much of what is out there is actually needs to be taken with a big bucket of salt, not just a grain or two.
So these world-renowned urologists, these papers, peer-reviewed literature, renowned journals, they said that they were able to neuromodulate human sexuality. And neuromodulation is planting an electrode and then providing neurological stimulation. So the paradigm for neuromodulation is cardiac pacemaking. We can keep the heart beating even after you're dead. Oddly, neuromodulation doesn't work in a consistent and persistent way elsewhere in the body. But these doctors claim that they place an electrode by the cavernous nerve and the pudendal nerve. Everyone's 2 favorite nerves that no one's ever heard about. The nerves responsible for arousal and an orgasm. So I decided to conduct an experiment on 2 rams, male sheep, and I got an erection and ejaculation by planting an electrode and controlling with a generator. But I also got defecation and urination. So it wasn't exactly bedroom friendly, unless you're in maybe Sydney or London or New York City or San Francisco. It wasn't desirable. So ordinarily what someone would do in the United States or Australia or the UK, now I got to go out and raise some money and I'll go experiment on some men in Brazil or Colombia. Instead, I decided to experiment on myself. I have a friend who's a urology surgeon. I had an implanted electrode by my pudendal nerve and cavernous nerve. And we tried all different sorts of waveforms, amplitude, voltages, and other than a bit of unpleasantness from mild electric shock sensation, nothing happened. So my conclusion was these papers were crap. That these people falsify the results, or they were looking to raise grant money to do for the research. And you and I were talking earlier about the importance of providence in life. So think about this. I think I'm a centaur. I get injured. I do this experiment. And a few years pass, and I'm now working on this very sophisticated catheter to go into the brain stem, circle of Willis, in the base of the brain, after stroke, to regulate blood pressure after stroke. Very, very difficult project. The surgeon that I'm working with this project on, on the last day of skiing at some resort in Utah, he's sitting in a chair next to the associate chairman of urology at the University of Utah, tells him about Project O, And this doctor, who's now my chief medical officer, says, "Oh, I got to talk to that guy because I want to come up with a way of counting the number of nocturnal erections." Think of all the coincidences that had to occur or providential events for this to happen. Yeah. And my wife looks at me pretty much every other day, 2-3 times a week, and says, "It had to be you. It needed a doctor who's really interested in sex, who really enjoys sex toys, who knows research, who knows about sensor technology, who crashed, who broke a bunch of bones in order for this whole thing to come about." This neurology professor tells me he's trying to come up with a smart ring to count the number of nocturnal erections that men have at night that are indicated cardiovascular health. He's been working on it for eight or nine years, and unsuccessfully. His concept is to put sensors into a condom ring-like form.
Yeah.
He was concerned with strangulation effect. So he came up to this condom ring form had like 8 times the elasticity of a regular condom, and he and his team of technologists had written a patent that they thought would keep anyone else out of this field. So he recruited me to take this project forward, raise some money, and work on the R&D. And about a month later, I said, "Great idea, but the whole thing is a do-over. You've wasted about $750,000 because your condom ring will break. So you put expensive sensors into a form that will break. 2, condom rings rotate, so you can get rotational artifact from the sensors. You're not going to get a good reading. And 3, you can go to any gas station in the United States or pharmacy, probably in New Zealand as well too. You can buy condoms, and there's no warning on the condom pack that says your dick's going to fall off if you wear this overnight. So you don't have to worry about strangulation effect. And the patents they'd come up with were not enforceable because of patent law in the United States. One, you have to have something that's truly proprietary. Well, the idea that nocturnal erections are predictive of man's cardiovascular and sexual health, that's in the public domain. There are about 10 research papers about that. And the sensors are not new. These sensors, you'll find them in your car, your refrigerator. So you're not, there's nothing new here. Anyone else can enter this field. So this doctor, he now works for me, and his head of technology, head of the company, they fired me. I'd never been fired in my life. So I turned around and said, "Well, in that case, I want to buy the company because this is a great idea, but I want to buy it." And that took some negotiation, and here we are now. We have our database is close to 60,000 erections. It's the world's largest database in the world. We now know more about men's sexual health than anyone else. Our data, we have there are 7 research papers. There are another 5 papers underneath, and the data is telling us information about men's sexual health that is transformational. That the doctors have been focused on minor causes, not the major causes of erectile dysfunction.
Ooh. Oh, you rebel, you. Okay.
Yes.
I've got immediately about only 120 different questions I want to ask you.
That's why.
To start off with, how does your technology work? How do you get this data? Because you were saying, well, is it basically like the at the end of the condom, not the end where you collect the semen, but actually the hello, there you are.
This is me, exactly. This is the cast of me. And
you wish.
The skin tone's a little bit off. I couldn't quite get that right. But that's the way it sits.
Excellent. How comfortable is that? As in, I mean, normally when you have got something down there, can you sleep with it, or is it just like a ring that you get used to?
So we had to, I wasn't, when Dr. Italian came to me with this idea of counting nocturnal erections, I said, well, one, I was unaware that there were any significance whatsoever. And we all know about morning wood.
Yeah.
I don't know if they call it New Zealand. We all know about morning wood. By the way, what do they call that in New Zealand?
I actually don't know. I'm German. So
okay.
we German.
What do they call it? What do they call it in Germany?
Well, we are constantly wood. That's the German in me.
Yes, of course.
Actually, no. Tell me, okay, let's go one step
We,
back
we,
before we
don't, we
go.
don't kill
Bef-
morning wood in the United States. Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah.
And we
Before we go
don't.
into the technology, actually tell me about the importance of erections at nighttime and the erections in the morning. Tell me about
Sure.
that.
So a healthy man should have 3 to 4 nocturnal erections per night.
Uh-huh.
Why? So again, we all know about morning wood and we laugh
Yeah,
about it, and no one, of course, wants that dead wood. But
yeah.
we all want to. Uh, we don't. We don't know what's going on when we're sleeping because we're asleep. But if that number goes down, it's indicative in general of either cardiovascular problem and
Oh.
or significant medication reaction.
Mm.
So the device could actually be predictive of heart attacks and strokes. Men who go from 3 nocturnal erections to 1 to 0 nocturnal erections have 50% chance of having a heart attack in the next 3 years. Now they could have medication side effects, they could have diabetes, or other things, but it's a significant cardiovascular health prediction.
Mm.
And I was unaware of that when Dr.
Mm.
Hotelli informed me of that, and that's extraordinary. So why? Because we got to get blood into our penis in order for the penis to work. So
Mm.
we need a pump that's working, and the pipes that come out of the heart, the arteries, they need to
Mm.
have good blood flow, and so the penis becomes the canary in the coal mine
Mm.
of cardiovascular disease. By the way, in New Zealand, you got that canary in the coal mine expression.
Mm, yeah,
How
yeah.
about Germany? You got a lot of coal mines in Germany. You probably have
Well,
that one there
exactly,
too.
exactly.
Yeah,
I'm sure,
it probably
and I'm
comes from
sure.
Germany.
Wahrscheinlich, probably. It's
So
intriguing though. So yes, you're right. There's very much a link there that most men don't understand, and most doctors probably don't understand,
they don't.
because we are not really talking about that. We are not really. We've been told nothing about sexual health, really,
Well,
and it
we doctors are at fault. We don't ask people about their sexual health.
exactly.
So you have this, um, you have some of this so important to everyone.
Hmm.
And frankly, as I said before, an orgasm a day, this should be a profound part of people's lives, but so many
Yep.
people
Yep.
draw back from it because of well, it might be cultural inhibitions, but also because they have anxiety or they have
Hmm.
health issues, or they drink too much, or they have issues with their partners.
Hmm.
But ideally, everyone should be sexually healthy and confident about their sexual health.
Hmm.
But when this doctor came to me and said, "I want to come to nocturnal erections," my thought was, well, two things. One, let's go for all erections, because what do men care more about? What's happening after sleeping? What happens while
Hmm.
they're fucking? That's
Hmm.
the rhetorical question. We want to know what's happening when we're fucking, and we want to maximize our performance and pleasure
Hmm.
for ourselves and for our partners. So that meant that in addition to getting data, I had to solve the cock ring problem. Stefan, do you know what the cock ring problem is?
Tell me.
Okay, I'll tell you. Because this Dr. Hotelling, like most doctors, is what I call a cock ring version. Most men, straight men, are cock ring virgins. And that's a real problem because every man will benefit from a cock ring. And I didn't understand this myself a couple years ago. So I've played around with cock rings. I'm that kind of
Yeah.
guy. That's my wife would say you're the right guy for this business. But I've never found a good one because they're these hard silicone gaskets, or like a noose on your dick. Once you put a noose in their dick, these hard silicone rings, they pinch, are uncomfortable. And men who have compromised circulation, they're dangerous. You really shouldn't be wearing them on 20, 30, 35 minutes. And you want them off right away after you have a climax. So they're not user friendly, unlike vibrators for women. So in order to come up with a ring that could be worn overnight, we had to reinvent the cock ring, and that's this. So this is the tech ring. It's not made of silicone. It's made out of a soft
Yeah.
elastomer.
Yeah.
What's the advantage of that? It allows the arterial blood to flow into the penis. It only constrains the venous return. Imagine a sink that's 75% plugged, but still, so the venous blood can drain from it. So
Yeah.
it's safe. It'll also lead to a long-lasting erection if you are having sex, which is good, and it can be worn overnight or worn safely during sex, and it can be worn for a long time. You're not, so I don't know about you. You're a younger man than me. At my age, I like to have sex for like 30, 40, 50 minutes a day. I don't want something I have to worry about. I got to take it off in 15 or 20 minutes. It's going to pinch where it's uncomfortable. So I was not thinking about fixing the cock ring problem, but I had to in order to come up with a way of counting the number of nocturnal erections. And the data is potentially life-saving. We've had
Yeah.
a couple men get cardiac catheterizations because of the information.
Interesting.
And with the data, also the ring with the data can also be worn during sex. Well, that means that men can now measure the impact upon their sexual performance. We'll get back to nocturnals in a moment. But men can measure the impact on the sexual performance of diseases, diabetes, hypertension being the worst ones, the impact of medications, because we doctors are jerks and we prescribe medications that fuck up men's sexual health, antihypertensives and anti-anxiety medications being the worst ones, often in combination. We don't ask or warn. Or you can see the impact of alcohol, recreational drugs, too much marijuana, or of relationships. Or so men can figure out, well, is my problem psychological or is it with this person? Or what's really going on? And then there are, on the non-medical side, there's the gamification aspect. So there are men now that are using our device competitively. So
You're kidding me.
no, and we actually played it. We had for Valentine's Day month, we had a contest for what man spent the most time erect over the course of the month. And there were some astounding numbers. I was very impressed. But this could be used in sport. Hey, are the All Blacks? Are your New Zealand All Blacks really the firmest rugby team? I mean, we want to know, right?
I think
how
the
do you guys?
reality the reality is that you're actually not far off the mark here. If you look at sexual artists, i.e., porn stars out there, the male porn stars, they treat their body very much like an athlete, like an extreme athlete, and they are able to have actually absolute control under the worst circumstances. Let's make love in this film on a windy corner in Chicago at minus 20 degrees. Now, have an erection right now. And indeed, I've had guests on my show who were able to do that. So there's obviously a certain argument to be said about that.
Well, there are two things that they can do. I mean, they do inject prostaglandin into the penis in order to get an erection. But let's get back to the night shift. Let's get back to to what's happening on the night shift to men with nocturnal erections, and what do they mean? Other than signifying a man's cardiovascular health and his sexual health, we don't actually know why they happen. But what's interesting is they only happen during REM sleep. So our device actually becomes a way of measuring the duration of REM sleep that certainly competes with peripheral wearables, the Whoop, Aura, Apple Watch, these things, things, the rings and watches that people have, where they're using a accelerometer to say, oh, there's no movement, you are in REM sleep, REM sleep right now. Well, is that true? I don't know. But I do know that we have engineers who are using our device along with a peripheral, a ring or a watch, to quantify their REM sleep, quality sleep, and we're within about 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes of those devices. So that's an interesting aspect of what we're doing as well too. And I know for personal use that it's really interesting. If I drink too much, whatever that means, I don't know what too much is. I have an older man's attitude towards that. If I drink too much, or if I travel, I just went around the world. I gave a lecture in Vienna, and then went to Japan, did the same thing about what our research is showing. Came home about a week ago, and I've been sleeping really poorly, waking up between 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and my nocturnal erections went from an average of 3 to 4 down to 2. And then last night I slept well for the first time. I had 5.
Exactly.
So it's really, as a personal health tool, I'll put it this way, I'm a lot more interested in my sexual health than I am in how many steps I took yesterday or counting my calories. I'm a guy.
No, that makes actually perfect sense. There's a lot to be said about the blood flow in your penis as an indicator of cardiovascular health. And I think we can say, yes, definitely there is a correlation there. Having said that, how does your database of 60,000 erection, how does that actually contradict or support the findings of older researchers like the Kinsey report, like there's so much bullshit out there as far as sex is concerned, as far as sexual health is concerned.
Yeah, there is. Are you familiar with he's a big influencer. He's the $2 million man, Brian Johnson,
Mm,
biohacker.
negative, no.
You can Google him. He claims that he takes like 180 supplements a day. He gets a bunch of, peptide injections every day. He looks in fabulous physical condition. And he's actually kind of marketing himself. He's turning himself into a marketing tool for his supplement regimen. That said, he looks fabulous. And he's probably certainly much better health than I am. But he claims I think he's in his 50s. He claims that he has the sexual health of his son, who's in his early 20s, because he has the same number of nocturnal erections as his son. Well,
Mm,
he's wrong. He doesn't. He's just always misinformed. He's not. I don't think he's not deliberately. He's not saying something. He's saying something that to my mind is accords with the conventional wisdom. So here's what's new. Men, the conventional thinking is that the incidence of erectile dysfunction goes up 10% per decade after age 40. So by my age, 70% of men have erectile dysfunction. Now, one of the problems with that thinking is that the doctors often group together two different types of men. There are men who can attain an erection.
mm,
Those men need a cardiologist, neurologist, maybe even a surgeon. Those men, they represent 10 to 15% of the overall ED numbers. Those men have significant problems. And those are the ones that doctors then group those together with the men who can't sustain an erection. They get an erection, they lose it. These are really two different groups, because the men who can't sustain erection are getting blood into their penis, and they're losing it for a whole variety of reasons, and often in combination. Confidence, relationship issues, alcohol, medications, diseases, all these things together can produce that problem. Well, most men are actually in good enough cardiovascular health that they are getting enough blood to their penis, and that their pump is working well, their arteries are getting enough blood in. So why are men, as they get older, having more erectile dysfunction? Well, the answer has to be on the venous side, I believe.
mm,
I'm 99% certain of this. I know it's personal experience. I'll tell you about it in just a moment. The problem is on the venous side. We all men, good health, all ages, get fading erections once we get
mm,
into our 20s. I'll pick on you, Stefan.
mm.
I'm guessing, certain, that when you were 12 or 13 years old, if you held a girl's hand, you could just get an erection from that alone. And that erection would probably last about 45 minutes or an hour, and you might even get blue balls afterwards. I'm guessing, looking at you, that does not happen anymore, and it doesn't happen to me anymore either.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
it doesn't happen to me now. Obviously, if I were cheating on my wife, there might be some anxiety that could be doing that, but that's not what's going on.
Yeah.
You know what? It happens to me when I'm having sex with my wife as well too. I said before, we've been married for 36, 37 years and have sex pretty much every day. The blood, as we get older, leaves the penis faster. Every erection ends in a venous leak or fading erection. What can we do to fight that? A cock ring. And I understand this a couple of years ago, and any man can test this on himself today. Any man can go to Pornhub or wherever he goes to pornography, get rock hard, and then just to do nothing and see how long it takes for your erection to go down. Then get rock hard, which we have 25, 35 seconds. Then get rock hard again, put a ring on it, ours, of course, and you will stay hard for about 2 to 4 minutes, because you're holding the blood in your penis and preventing the blood from leaking from the penis.
Absolutely.
This is so obvious that I look back and think, why did I need data to prove this to myself?
Right. I mean, for those of you out there who are thinking, what the hell are they talking about? The penis is basically a fantastic organ which has at the center like two balloons there, that arteries that come from the heart fill those balloons up. And then in order for the blood to come out of these balloons, the blood vessels that are bringing it back into the circulation are on the outside of the penis. So therefore, if we constrict the outside of the penis, just putting something tight around there, we just stop the blood flow. Now, therefore, if you go over the top, well, that's a very bad thing to do. That basically causes real damage. But if you get it just right, it's perfect to prolong your erection. So it's actually, that has been around since the 70s, 80s.
Well, Dave Cochran's have been around since 2000 BC. I think is the oldest one they found.
Oh, I see. So, really?
Yeah, most of them disappeared because they made out of leather.
I
or
see.
hemp. But no one wants to. We don't want men choking their penis. But so we have the only cock ring in the world that we call the maximum performance ring. We actually did research to prove that it can be safely worn for an hour and a half by
Mm,
thousands and thousands of uses. So
mm.
because we want to address that concern because
Mm.
men need better sex.
Correct.
Women
I
have
agree.
vibrators and men have shit. You
Ha
know,
ha ha ha. I like.
women as much as they like to. It's funny because when I at medical conferences or at sex conferences, even women will come up to me and say, "Oh no, not something else for men." You're in the sea of vibrators and dildos. There's
Mm,
nothing lingerie. There's nothing here for. It's all for women. But women
mm.
have this mindset that some of they've been neglected. Well, men have really been neglected
Yes, I
because
noticed that your ring is actually two rings in one. So
correct
not only does it go around the base of the
on
penis.
purpose.
Indeed, I was about to ask because the base of the penis makes sense to me because that is where you restrict the venous flow that comes out of the penis, but it also goes underneath your balls. Why is that?
Sure. Well, two reasons. One, data. We needed the balls as anchor because it was just a ring around the shaft of the penis. We
Yeah.
get rotational artifact from the sensors. I need to
Ah.
anchor the sensors in place.
Mm.
But I also, the balls are an area of their secondary erogenous zone. If you hold them with blood in the balls, they become more sensitive. But most importantly,
Yeah.
I wanted to put the right amount of pressure over the urethra to draw out the male orgasm. This is another one of the sort of simplistic insights that
Mm.
that I made because I just got engaged in thinking about this problem. Vibrators don't work particularly well for men the way they do for women. They so how can we produce more pleasure for a man
Mm.
by putting the right amount of pressure over the urethra, not to choke off the urethra, but just to draw out the male orgasm.
Mm.
So my goal was to increase the ejaculatory phase by 50%. Tested on 21 men here in Montana,
Yeah.
age 20, it was 28 to 70 at that time. I was the oldest man in the group. And when we achieved a 50% protraction in the ejaculatory phase for all the men, we made that device. We call it our maximum performance ring. It doesn't have technology in it. It's just there to produce more intense pleasure and to help men to last longer,
Yeah.
be more confident because you're not going to lose your erection with minimal stimulation. Uh, and women like it too, or male partners like it too, because guys going to last longer, and you
Mm.
got more intense orgasm. My wife says she's glad our kids are out of the house because I'm loud for the first time. I am. The orgasm is so intense. Even sometimes when I'm masturbating, I find
Yeah.
myself making noises. So women have, look at vibrators. They became popular kind of like back in the 80s, and my mother had one in the 60s. It was like, hidden away in a dresser drawer. It was like embarrassing. When they came out in the 80s, probably when you were dating, there was certain, kind of embarrassment for women. You need to come during penetrative sex. You're going to become vibrator dependent. And now they're mainstream. New Zealand,
Mm.
Australia, the UK, United States, Canada. Our daughter takes them on dates. I don't know how many my wife owns. They're mainstream. Cock rings are not. They're still kind of a gay thing or a
Yeah.
fetish, thing. But every man can rock harder, last longer,
Uh,
have more intense pleasure, satisfy their partner more, and be more confident by using a comfortable, effective cock ring.
mm. I mean, having said that, you have created this tool that initially was a research tool. It had sensors in it. I assume that the types that you are now that men can purchase do not have the sensors, or is that
Correct.
all a? What is the difference in the price? For example, how much does?
Significant. I'm pulling up my phone because I want to show you what the data looks like.
Yeah.
But the device with technology costs $275 in the US.
Mm.
We do distribute them in Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah.
The device, our technology costs $60. And here's what the data looks like. So
Uh-huh.
you'll see that there's an erectile fitness score here.
Yeah.
It's on a 1 to 10 scale. Anything above 6.5 is good.
Yeah.
We also tell, you can't be the boxes, I guess, but we tell people the firmness of the nocturnal erections, the firmness of the sex erections, how many nocturnal erections they have per night. I'll show you what the data looks like.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
So on the far left, you'll see I'm having sex with my wife, and then I'm having 4, maybe 5 erections afterwards.
Mm.
That's good health, and it was nice for me to see that after several nights of poor recordings because I've been traveling, as I said before. So with this information, men and their providers are getting objective, actionable, and most
Mm.
important, personal data. Because
Mm.
one of the ways we doctors fuck up is we treat everyone as if they're one size fits all,
Exactly.
and we're not. We all respond to medications differently. We respond to testosterone therapy differently,
Yeah.
shockwave therapy, whatever modalities are being used for men's sexual health. We all respond differently. And in medicine, like for treating high blood pressure, put everyone on the same pill, regardless of their age, regardless of their
Mm.
gender. If someone's depressed, put them on the same antidepressant. That's dumb. Now it's okay. It's sort of smart now we have a data set, but this with a wearable, your personal wearable. It's your data, and I know that men are different. I know that there are men who take, for example, losartan for blood pressure, and they have no impact on the or lisinopril on the sexual performance. There are men who take it, and they do. With the data, you can see it. Your
Exactly.
data.
That's interesting. I mean, we all live very stressful lives nowadays. And I have to say that maybe 2024, 2025, things have even gotten a bit worse. What is the impact of stress on nocturnal erections? If
It's
we're
it's a killer.
exactly, exactly
Yeah.
right. So it's such an erection is such a multifactorial issue. It's so hard for us to predict. Okay, we're adding a medications. Maybe the medications are easy because there's a clear before and after, and you might see a direct effect. Just as much as you have seen an impact of jet lag and sleep disruption from that angle. So it's actually quite good. But what about chronic stress? What about chronic problems? For example, the reason I'm asking is there's a beautiful phenomenon called cortisol steal. In other words, if you're constantly running on high stress, then your body needs to produce a lot of cortisol. Now, often enough, our nutrition is not great, and the precursors of the cortisol, we're struggling to find them in our body. So the body goes around and says, okay, which other hormones can I use? For example, oh, testosterone, the androgens over there. I don't like the testosterone. We don't need that right now. Let's actually take the testosterone and make more cortisol out of it. That's called cortisol steal.
Yeah.
So therefore, often enough, men have got lower testosterone levels at times of prolonged great stress. And that's one of the issues. So how much does testosterone play a role in this, in our erections compared with, let's say, cardiovascular health?
Well, let's first talk about the cortisol for a moment. There are small studies indicate that men and women who have sex every day, an orgasm every day, can cut their cortisol levels up to 50%,
Mm.
stress hormone, up to 50% in a month. I mean, we doctors should be recommending this to people who are
Absolutely.
stressed. Hey,
Yeah.
even if you don't have a partner, go jerk off and go wank. This is something that. And by the way, 2 minutes isn't enough. Draw it out. Get the full hormonal benefit of this. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
Testosterone is really interesting as well too, because, and I'll tell you about my personal experience with it. Are you taking testosterone, Stefan?
Negative. No, I'm working on natural ways how to increase it, and that included for me the weight loss. That included for me other nutraceuticals that helped
Right.
me, and with that I've rectified a just borderline low testosterone to now sort of a moderate kind of level. So
I think.
I've shown that I can do that.
I mean, by biohackers I've spoken to, and there's one Australian guy, Lucas Aoun, but a lot of and there's Timu, the guy in Finland. But biohackers I spoke to say that with nutraceuticals, they think they can raise the testosterone 20-30%, and I don't doubt that. There are other lifestyle changes these men have as well too. They
Mm.
tend to be really physically fit as well. I never. I got involved with testosterone just as I got involved in this area of health.
Mm.
And from talking to my friends, it seems like every guy was taking it, whether they needed it or not.
Mm.
And so I asked I thought I'd take it, and I asked my urologist advisors, what do you think is going to happen? They thought that I would have my nocturnal erections would last longer
Mm.
and that it'd be harder. And that didn't happen. What did happen is my upper body strength increased by 8 to 10%.
Mm.
So So I encourage men who are going to utilize our technology or are going to take testosterone therapy for that matter, make it objective, because what the doctors do is they chase a number and subjective factors.
Mm,
My age, they'll target, say, oh, we want to keep it at 700.
mm,
Well, I don't care about the number. I want to know what's going on with my dick and what's going on with
mm,
my muscles.
mm,
Uh, and then the doctor will ask about, this is how in the United States, how's your energy? How are you sleeping? How's your libido? Well, those things are subjective, Stefan.
mm,
Look, if I told you right now, hey, Stefan, I want your bank account information. I want to wire you $5 million. I think you're going to have really great energy tomorrow. You're going to sleep really well, and your libido is going to be awesome. Because I know that's what I would experience. If you want me, I'm even cheaper than you. Just send me $500,000 because I want to experience. I want to have more energy, sleep better, and have more libido.
uh,
So those things are subjective. They sound objective, but they're not really objective.
yeah,
Objective is measure your muscle. It's so
exactly.
simple. You don't need, if you go to clinics in the United States, they'll charge you for these fancy bioimpedance machinery. No, just put a tape measure on your biceps and around your pecs or your upper thigh. Go to the gym, and see what happens. At my age, I'm 72 now. I'm really concerned with losing muscle mass. My testosterone is borderline low. It's in the low 300s. Actually, I'm not on testosterone. It's in the 600s.
Mm,
But so I think that tea is a profound value to men as they get older. It should be used more often, but it should be used following objective parameters, just the way we do with blood pressure. We don't just give you blood pressure and say, how do you feel? No, we encourage people to get multiple readings. We don't
mm.
treat cardiac arrhythmias with, hey, Stefan, your pulse is irregular. Take this pill, come back in 3 months. And if it's still irregular in 3 months, we'll double the dose. No, we don't do that. That's stupid. We want electrocardiogram. We want blood tests. We want more data points. So if men are going to take testosterone,
Mm,
follow your nocturnal erections, and follow and look at your muscles, because that's
mm.
you now can do that objectively. Um,
I like
we're
that.
all good.
Mm,
We can harness technology. There's this
mm,
big gap. There are all sorts of wearables, all sorts of things in health, but nothing for sex. Well, now there is one for sex,
mm,
and all men, we're all on the road from erectile fitness
mm,
to erectile dysfunction.
mm.
And I like to think in terms of fitness because dysfunction is negative.
Yeah.
Women maybe I kind of said before you were born, but back in the 70s or 80s, women could still be described as frigid, hysteric, and orgasmic. No one uses those words anymore. I haven't heard the word frigid used to describe a woman really since since the early 90s. So feminists came along, good thing, and they said, fuck you, we're not going to be described this way anymore. As a matter of fact, aside from blaming most of our problems on men, we want to talk about women positively. Well, men need to think about their sexual health positively. Right
Mm,
now, if you're a younger man, you are sexually fit. You are erectile fit, and you want to maintain your fitness.
mm,
If you're going down that road to dysfunction, where are you on that road?
mm,
Ideally, you'd want to stop and assess where you are. And if you're going down that road too far, you want to reverse course. Well, it's like driving a car without a dashboard, or trying to find out where you are on a hike without GPS. Where am I? I don't know where I am. I don't know the map. I don't know. So with data, men can now say, here I am.
mm,
I'm in good condition. I want to maintain it. I'm going to monitor my good condition, or I got a problem,
mm,
and what can I do to reverse that problem?
mm.
So you're taking nutraceuticals is a preventive measure and a wise one to try to prevent that problem.
Mm. If you look at your database and if you listen to the stories of men, there will be men who had a rude awakening as far as their nocturnal erections were concerned. They might have none or one or two. What kind of techniques or what kind of things did those men implement where then their erections came back? What were sort of the low-hanging fruit for them?
Well, the low hanging fruit is really more not. If you're down to one nocturnal erection, you got a problem, and you really need to sort it out with a doctor. But most men are in who have problems are in the 2 to 3 range,
Mm,
and then they need to look at their life. They need to is this a medical problem? Am I over medicated? And that's
mm,
often the case. Am I drinking too much? Drink too much in combination with taking beta blockers and taking SRI depressants. That's a problem. Is it, to your point earlier, is it stress?
mm,
What can I do to eliminate stress in my life?
mm,
Uh, it, so the data you know, it could be multifactorial. We have men who buy our device and they wake up and they realize, oh well, you know what, I'm drinking too much,
Mm.
or it's my medications, or um, but I there's another side to this too, which is that there are men who get the technology and then realize I've just spent a lot of money trying to fix a problem I don't have. Because a man has 3 or 4 nocturnal erections per night,
Yeah.
and they have erectile dysfunction. There's something else going on. So I'll just mention a guy who contacted me about 5 weeks ago. This man spent $16,000 because he had erectile dysfunction, but he really didn't, because again, I spoke before about how you need to distinguish between whether your problem is you can't attain erection. You can't attain erection, you need a doctor. But your problem is you can't sustain erection, you get to assess what that is. So this guy went to a conventional doctor. He's taken maximum dose Cialis. He's taken tadalafil. He's taking testosterone replacement therapy. He had a cardiac workup, which is negative. And then he goes to the alternative side, cash side in the United States, cold laser therapy, shockwave therapy, red light therapy. And he still has erections. So I asked him, when do you lose, when you masturbate, what happens? He has no problem he masturbates. So what happens when you're having sex? Well, and this I've heard the story from several guys. I get erect. I go down to my wife. I lose my erection when going down on her. She has an orgasm, and then she wants me to penetrate her. I get hard, but then I lose it. So, well, what do you feel when you penetrate her? He says, nothing. Well, how many kids does she have? 5 kids.
No.
How old is she? How old is she? 62. Well, that's the problem. You're not getting any friction. And no, so we like to talk about the importance of communication between men and women. But there are 3 things I've heard from men that men complain about women that no guy wants to talk about with a woman, because it's kind of it's a buzzkill. Telling your wife or your girlfriend that her pussy's too big. That's a problem. Stefan, I know you're divorced right now. I don't know if you told your wife that. Was that what led to the divorce? I don't know.
No,
But
I certainly had a girlfriend in the past who was anatomically just very different, and it was a challenge, I have to say. So there are just times when maybe there is a discrepancy, and we need to be honest about those kind of things, isn't it?
Well, let me circle back to this guy. So I told him, one, get our tech ring and see where you are. He had 3 nocturnal erections per night. And so we'll try our maximum performance ring, because the maximum performance ring is designed to hold the blood in the penis very comfortably for a protracted period of time. He emailed me last week. He's had sex with his wife 3 times, climaxed 3 times with penetrative sex. Because what did he need? He needed the increased blood. He needed confidence.
Yep.
He needed increased blood from being held in the penis, not to worry about losing his erection. He was able to. And so he told me, I spent $16,000. If doctors had asked me the right questions, I could have solved the problem for $60. And he's right. Doctors don't ask the right questions.
Intriguing.
We don't ask any questions about sex.
Okay. And I think that is the biggest thing. We are not open and honest about that, both from doctors to patients, doctors to men, especially men. We like to sort of pretend that we're super macho. And in reality, there is so much that we could grow from, literally in this case, if we were to actually have open and honest discussions. But more importantly, between man and woman, or man and partner, let's call it like that, there are often very few discussions that are honest about sex. Talk about love language when we talk emotional, but certainly even less so when it comes to sex. What do we like? What turns us on? Maybe these things change over our lifetime. Maybe there is room to play. There's room for fantasy. There's room for new things, for toys. And it's intriguing that you're saying that there's so much for women out there. I think a vibrator is nowadays a very accepted form of relaxation for a woman, yet the same thing for a man is deemed inappropriate in many circles. And I think that is something, and that is something that we need to address. Uh, what other techniques or what other transformations have you experienced? So we talked about stress management. We talked about simply changing the mechanics by impeding the venous outflow from the penis, which is great. What other things have been shown in your experience to work? So testosterone, not necessarily, but I would like to come back to that because the reality is that men often do no longer do as much sport. They don't have the upper arm strength. So here you want to support your body because you're on top of your partner. And then after a minute, your arms are wobbling and you can't actually
Right.
maintain that. Talk about a downer on everything. So
Sure.
I think the physical fitness, the maintaining the physical fitness will be key to restoring your sexual health.
Yeah, it is, but people, again, people, I think I think it's been a negative influence of TV, of movies, and of porn upon people's sexual expectations as well too. I mean, uh, Game of Thrones sex. My wife's going to come home a little bit. I'm going to tear her clothing off and throw her up against the wall, and we're both in a climax in about 2 minutes. That ain't happening. As a matter of fact, she'd be pissed off. I don't know when the last time I tried to pick her up, and I, you know, Stefan, I don't know. Maybe if your goal is to have your female partner wrap her legs around your hips and you walking upstairs while fucking, that would be impressive. That I haven't, but I think people need to be realistic about what their expectations are in terms of, and that is a problem. I would say quite a few of the people I speak to about sex partners have unrealistic expectations, or they're not communicating to their partner what it is that really turns them
Yeah.
on. And men, especially, I think, are more actually reluctant to do that than women are. But in terms of the data, shockwave therapy is very big in the United States and elsewhere.
Please describe that to me. I'm as a doctor here in New
Yeah,
Zealand. I know it certainly from lithotripsy, where we
yeah,
have kidney stones or stones otherwise that we try to hammer them with
it's
the
the same
with
thing.
shockwave. Yeah, but
So it's
why would I do that to my penis or to my
because
balls?
the goal is to break up microcalcifications
Right.
on the arterial side.
Okay.
And right now, if there are these subjective scoring systems called the IIEF and the SHIM score that are used to evaluate men's sexual health. And it's very easy to qualify for therapy with them. And so men then take these they go to doctors and they say, I think I have ED, and they have these subjective scores, and they then get shockwave therapy. And a lot of them don't benefit. It's very, very expensive. In the United
Mm,
States, shockwave therapy is between $5,000 and $12,000. In Germany, it's
mm,
close to that. It's about 2/3 of that. And if a man has one or less nocturnal erections, that man's vasculogenic disease is so advanced that he's not going to benefit from the shockwave therapy.
mm,
That man needs to, one, get control over his cardiovascular or metabolic health,
mm,
and might even need a penile implant. Uh, might be, but before the shockwave therapy, he needs to address issues of cardiac health,
mm,
obesity,
mm,
hypertension, diabetes, etc.
mm.
At the other extreme, more commonly, men will have 3 or 4 nocturnal erections per night. Any benefit they get from shockwave therapy, I'm smiling because there are geese flying overhead because spring is coming. Any benefit from shockwave therapy with a man who has normal number of nocturnal erections is a placebo benefit.
Mm,
So why spend the money on the therapy? And if a man is eligible for the therapy, has, say, between 1 plus and
mm,
3 nocturnal erections per night, they can use our device to monitor the benefit,
mm,
and they can actually say when they can learn when they can stop the therapy, as opposed to paying for full
mm,
12, 16 treatments. So that's been interesting to see, in which the device can help people identify their eligibility for therapy
mm.
and monitor therapy. We have had 2 men that I'm aware of, extreme cases, who were going to get penile implants. And they bought our device and saw they had nocturnal erections and realized that the problem was here in their heads and not in their penises. And these are men with significant mental, behavioral health issues, like I like to call them today, OCD and borderline autism. But they didn't need the surgery. They needed therapy. The device is also really valuable in guiding therapy, in couples therapy, because on the non-doctor side, the doctors don't ask any questions, and the therapists want to make everything about psychosocial issues, about interpersonal issues and communication issues.
Yeah.
It's two extremes. Doctors don't talk to people. Spend about 12 minutes, 7-8 minutes with people. The extreme is talk therapy. Well, if you're addressing a couple's issues, and the real problem is medical, you're interfering with a couple's with a couple's happiness. If the men and the women are thinking it's the issue of attractiveness or what we're not or doing or are doing in bed, but the real problem is medication related or heart disease related, the therapists are it's almost not it becomes it's poor medical practice. And so both sides, the doctors and the therapists, by not getting data,
Exactly.
they are doing a disservice to their patients.
Exactly. Well, if you only got a hammer, then everything needs to look like a nail.
Yes.
And that is, we see that in the extremes in both camps. And that is what I'm fighting against in general terms. In functional medicine, this is such a beautiful overarching umbrella that incorporates both allopathic medicine, so that the school medicine in the Western world, as well as alternatives to the school medicine. Some of them, maybe even 30 years ago, we would have considered them woo-woo. And nowadays we've got scientific data to actually show that so many things help. And for example, we know that a sedentary lifestyle nowadays is similar to smoking a pack a day. We know that stress has such huge detrimental impact on our lives. Now that, again, 30 years ago we didn't have the data. Nowadays we have. And here is the same that you are providing. We now can actually measure the man's sexual health in very clear terms. And I actually like that you have got this large database to actually draw conclusions from, rather than guesstimating or looking at some data that was brought and published out there that might have been on a very different client cohort. If you are looking at I don't know, farmers somewhere in a healthy Mediterranean country that are living completely a healthy lifestyle, that's probably very different sexual data compared with someone who lives in New York and is eating ultra processed food all day long and is barely moving. So I think these are,
Well, I like to say that where there are problems on both sides. And the stuff that doctors prescribe, I think is often toxic or deleterious. And we talked about antihypertensives and antidepressants, especially and anti-anxiety medications being detrimental to sexual health. On the other side, there are a lot of claims that are made, and a lot of stuff doesn't work. And so again, utilizing technology, men can actually assess the claims. So we have lots of, it's tapered off, but we started out, we had quite a few pharma companies on the alternative medical side, on the integrated medical side, who wanted us to test out their dick supplements.
Nice.
Nothing worked. Except for one. And so, whether it's beetroot or maca or arginine or citrulline, nitric oxide supplements, we didn't find a single one that worked. Now, that doesn't mean it might not work in you.
That's right.
But in our test group here in Montana, granted, all white men in Montana, we'd like to say, but in our test group, none of these things worked. The only one that worked was a combination of citrulline and arginine. It's called a Firm, and we actually sell it on our website. There was data showing that it increased nocturnal blood flow by about 15%.
Okay.
That's something, not 100%, but it's something, and it was objective. But a lot of claims are made. I mean, there's a company selling red light therapy for the penis, claiming that the red light therapy increases testosterone, and increases nocturnal erections. Well, I don't know how they tested these things because they didn't have any data. So they gave us 6 devices, and we tested on 6 men. My testosterone level went down. and no impact on my nocturnals. Now, and I have an NDA with this company. I'm not going to say who they are. But I'll be able to guess. But by the way, I think the red light therapy is effective for other things.
Yeah.
I just
Well,
don't think
no,
it's effective.
but there's the myth that you essentially bathe your balls in sunlight, and that somehow increases testosterone and increases your sexual health. So you're
Well,
telling
that
me,
makes no sense whatsoever because we know that the testicles are deliberately hanging outside the body because the body wants nature wants our testicles to be maximizing for their production of sperm and
yeah,
testosterone. Well, the balls hanging outside, if they want to be warm, the balls be inside our body like the ovaries. They're not. They're outside our body because we know that the ideal temperature for production of sperm, I don't know testosterone, but we know the ideal temperature for production of sperm. It's probably true for testosterone as well too. I just don't have data. Is 2 degrees centigrade less than our core body temperature. That's why they're hanging out there. So the notion that I'm going to put red light therapy on my balls and it's going to increase that's counterintuitive. Nevertheless, I played along with it because I know the red light therapy is beneficial for psoriasis. I know
right.
red light therapy can help people in these. I'm in the far north. Help people in the far north with mood disorders of winter and things of that nature. I don't. So don't. I'm not saying here that all this integrative alternative stuff is bullshit because I don't think that, but it needs to be tested. We need to bring the same, if you will, from my perspective, discipline to it, objective discipline to it that we do when we're skeptical of what the conventional doctors are doing. And I say that if you go into, and I can be a fool as well too. If you go, or credulous, if you go into my bathroom right now, you'll see about 8 supplements. Do I think that they really work? I think the vitamin D3 is beneficial. The rest of them, I don't know, but at least I know they're not doing any harm. I know that the cordyceps mushrooms, the whatever, magnesium, all these things they're not going to do any harm, unlike the shit the doctors prescribe. So I'm okay with that. But I'd like to make things objective.
Yeah.
And this tool allows people on the integrative side to make things objective as well too. And I wish they were a little bit more rigorous about the claims.
But see, here you are alluding already to a key problem in that in evidence-based medicine, we love to create that beautiful example of if we just give now, let's say, selenium for thyroid health. So we check only out those people who don't get selenium, those people who get selenium, then we check the thyroid markers, and no, we can't really prove anything. As if one single cofactor in millions of things would make a difference. On the flip side, here you're a very active man. If those of you on the podcast, you can't see him, but there's not much fat on this youngster there. He is using nutraceuticals. He is living a healthy lifestyle. He is having sex every day. I mean, that all works together. So I don't think it's so easy to point your finger nowadays on one particular thing. Medications maybe be the one exception to that rule because you can see, okay, I had a healthy sex life and now I have got the issue of a beta blocker being added and now nothing works. So I think these are the very clear examples where this exception to the rule. But otherwise, we are such complicated beings living in such a complicated world. It's very hard to pinpoint, hey, I've eaten 2 sausages 4 weeks ago, and therefore now I've got erectile dysfunction. It doesn't work like that, does it?
Yeah, let's circle back to something I said early on, to be a little bit controversial, which I think it's really important to have. I said orgasm a day. It's important to plan for pleasure, just the way you plan your exercise.
Yeah.
I don't. Once you create an exercise habit, you miss it. Once you create a sexual habit, if you will, you miss it if you go without it. And I think it's important to have good habits. And I think people make excuses not to have sex. They're stressed. Our child is crying. They put it off and they put it off, and it's kind of weird to my mind because they're putting on something that's pleasurable. Exercise is hard. But exercise you do on your own. It's easier. It doesn't require interaction with someone else. But I wish that people would approach sex the way in which they approach exercise. I'm not saying you should have a whiteboard in your bedroom saying we're going to hey honey, here's the next 40 minutes. 10 minutes of this, 10 minutes of that, 10 minutes of that. Oh, by the way, I haven't tried that idea. Might be a bad idea, but I think that people need to plan for their sexual health the way they plan for their overall health as well.
I think this is a beautiful, beautiful way that you're saying that. You're quite right. I think there is so much we can do. Yes, there are supplements, there's testosterone, there's all those kind of things. But if we actually just step back and actually think about the various pillars in our lives where you want to invest in, and I think invest in communication, invest in your relationships, invest in yourself, invest in joy. These are all habits that we need to create. And with that, no doubt, we will have a more fulfilled life. And we're going to end up with being more satisfied, including in the sexual territory. And I think this is so beautiful. Oh, wow. Elliot, you're an amazing man. Thank you so much for being a guest on my show. This has been amazing. If people want to know more about you, want to know more about your invention, want to actually purchase things, where can they find you?
They can go online and find out about us at FirmTech, myfirmtech.com. People can contact me directly at Elliot, ELLIOT, at myfirmtech.com.
That's beautiful. Guys, look down there into the description of the YouTube video and of the podcast. You will find all of Elliot's information down there. Elliot, again, thank you so much for being a guest on my show. This was amazing.
Thanks, Tom. That was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Absolutely. And you guys out there, look after yourself and live with intention. Bye.
Put a ring in it.
I never give up. I never give up. I never give up.